Hey everybody, people are always asking me what kind of off-road recovery equipment or safety equipment they should take with them when they go out off-roading, or they ask me what kind of equipment I carry with me. So I want to do a really quick video and just go over the kind of safety and recovery equipment that I carry with me every time I go off-road. This isn't necessarily a list of everything you should have, it's just a list of what I take with me, of what I think I need based on what I've learned over the last few years, a lot of times learning the hard way. So if you're new to off-roading, it might give you a few ideas of the kind of stuff you should be taking with you every time you go out off-road. All right, so I've taken all of my recovery and safety related gear out of the Jeep and laid it out here so that I can quickly go through it all and show you what I have and tell you a little bit about why I have it or why I got it, how I use it. Now, the very first piece of recovery equipment that I ever got, I don't have anymore, and I'll tell you why I don't have it anymore in a minute, but the very first piece of equipment I got were Mack recovery boards. So the Mack are really good at getting yourself out of the mud and out of sand. In the last few years, I don't really go where there's mud and sand anymore. I generally tend to stay in the desert or do rock crawling, that sort of thing. So I really didn't have a need for them anymore, so I ended up selling them to somebody that did have a need for them. But if you do overlanding, or if you're out in places where you know there's sand and mud, Mack are really good to have. Moving on to the equipment that I have now. As you can see here, I've got the high lift jack, which is a great multi-purpose tool for recovery. You don't want to use a high lift jack for things like changing your tires, because they're actually death traps. Generally speaking, a regular scissor jack or bottle jack is safer to use to change a tire. It's great for if you're stuck and you need to lift the Jeep up and get some rocks under the tires or something like that. It's great. You can use it in all sorts of different ways. It's a really good versatile tool to have, and they're fairly cheap. I also have the extra base for the high lift jack, because if you're in soft sand or dirt and you put any pressure on it, that small base is just gonna squish right down into the dirt. Fire extinguisher, keep it mounted on the rear roll bar. We got the first aid kit. I've got a couple of them in the Jeep, mostly Band-Aids, some heavy-duty Band-Aids, butterfly-type Band-Aids in case somebody gets a really nasty cut. Mostly alcohol-type swabs and cleaning pads. The most common injury we see, and we see it all the time, is somebody just falling down and scraping their knees or cutting their hands or getting a little cut while they're working on their Jeep or something. And those alcohol pads are really good just for getting all the mud and dirt out of your cut so you don't get an infection. Now, this isn't all my tools, but I've got a full set of tools, all the common tools that I know how to use. I'm not a super mechanic, but I've got all the basics. So if I needed to turn a nut or a bolt or get something off or on in the Jeep, I could if I had to. Things like zip ties, large ones, small ones. These are super big, reusable zip ties, which are really nice. Tire plugs and tire patches. This isn't all of them. I got a lot more in the Jeep. Very helpful because we run into flat tires all the time, and sometimes it's just better to put a patch in it than putting a spare on. Valve cores. One thing that happens often, the people that have the type of deflators that actually pull the valve stem out, sometimes those get lost. And if you lose a valve stem or a valve core on the trail, you're in trouble, unless I'm there. I've got lots of extra ones. I've got fuses in there, all the different types for my Jeep, as well as just common amperages and sizes and types for other Jeeps and vehicles. Along with the fuses and everything, I've got just a simple electrical tester, also electrical tape, which I didn't take out in case somebody runs into electrical problems with their Jeep. That can help solve it. I've got lots of flashlights in the Jeep at all times. This is the kind that goes on your head. I've got large ones, small ones, rechargeable ones. I always make sure that the batteries are charged up because you don't want to be out on the trail and get stuck at night and realize that all your batteries are dead. Shovel, very important, help as a recovery tool. Also, if you get stuck overnight somewhere, you never know when you're going to need that. Of course, I've got the power tank, which is still in the Jeep. I also have 2 spare air compressors and a couple of hoses and gauges so that if one breaks, I've always got an extra. I've got lots of sets of gloves, recovery gloves, work gloves. I've got this nice 6x6, which is helpful when I need to jack something up using the high lift jack or just a regular jack. If I need more room to extend something, I can put that under there. Works as a base to keep the jack from moving around. Very helpful. Of course, I have the winch. This is the remote to my winch. The actual winch is on the front of the Jeep. I've got a Warn Xeon 10. It's not wireless, but I got this nifty wireless remote control that plugs into almost any Warn winch, and probably other brands as well. There's a little dongle that plugs in where the remote would plug in, and it basically converts the winch into a wireless winch, which is really handy. All right, I've got a little pad that rolls out. It's just like a yoga pad. So if myself or somebody else needs to crawl under the Jeep, usually if it breaks, I'm not the one that knows how to fix it, but I've always got friends with me that do know how to fix it. That just rolls out to keep their back out of the dirt and out of the rocks. Also in the Jeep at all times are emergency blankets, various towels to dry off, wipe things off, rain jacket, always in the Jeep. I always have one or two or more emergency radios. I've got a CB, I've got one mounted inside, and this is a little Vhf Ham radio. The CB is going to be almost worthless in an emergency situation because the range is so short. You're lucky if you get a mile out of it. With this antenna, you're lucky if you get 500 yards out of it. Chances are a CB is not going to help you. If you have a ham radio and you have an amateur radio license and you know how to get onto the local repeater, that can be very helpful. Emergency battery starter. This will start a dead battery. It also acts as a 120 volt power source so that I can plug in to charge up my cameras. My son plugs his Nintendo in there and charge stuff up. It's a really nifty thing to have. We've always got a couple of straps in the Jeep, and unfortunately have to use them more often than I'd like. We always carry lots of water, extra water, usually 2 or 3 times more water than we plan that we would ever possibly need. Being stuck without water is worse than being stuck without food, so we always take a lot of extra water. We've always got snacks and food to eat, but again, water is more important. You can go for a couple of days, actually you can go for weeks without any food. You can't go very long at all without water. The goodie bag here, we've got, of course, more air hoses, but the most important thing that you should have in your Jeep at all times, because if you ever need it and you don't have it, you're going to be wishing that you did. I've mentioned it before, toilet paper. We've got several rolls in here. Believe me, this is a lifesaver. When you need it and you don't have it, you're going to wish you did. That's it. That's what I carry with me. One other important thing is if you go out, really in the middle of nowhere where there's not going to be any cell service, don't go alone. Now, some people say, well, I go out alone all the time and I've never had a problem. That's great. That's generally how it works. You don't have a problem until you have a problem, and then you're stuck and you're alone. Some people are actual experts at self-recovery and getting themselves out of, if they're stuck in the mud or whatever, they're real experts at taking care of themselves. I'm not that expert, and unless you're that expert, you really should never go out alone. It's more fun taking other people out with you as well. What did I forget? What don't I have that I should have? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you carry in your Jeep at all times that I don't have. What have I missed? What are some other important things that should be in the Jeep at all times? Leave a comment below and let us know.